Hello, I'm Fran Manella, National Park Service Director and a past president of the National Recreation and Park Association. We're here today to talk with Chris Jarvi as one of our key legends in the history of the national parks and all parks throughout our nation. And Chris, you're now an associate director, and I know you're working in national parks because I had a chance to hire you. And your title is Associate Director for Partnerships, Interpretation and Education, Volunteerism, and Outdoor Recreation. I know I gave you a long title, but it is such an important area, as you know, in the national parks. And we're so pleased to have you aboard with us. You've already made a difference in your being with us in over a year's time already. I would like you, though, to talk about some of your history and how did you get interested in parks and recreation, and tell us about your history. I know that you were linked to the Forest Service in the beginning. Could you share some of that with us?
Sure. I was raised the son of a forest ranger, grew up in Oregon and California, spent a little time in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but ended up in Southern California where my dad was the supervisor of the Angeles National Forest. So I had been around the outdoors all my life and really liked that in general. But I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was expected to go to college and sat around one day and thought, well, business administration sounds good. I'd try that, not following my instincts, just
Right.
following my intellect. And in the first semester started failing accounting.
Oh, that is good in business.
And it was really pretty funny because I walked in knowing that I didn't want to get a failing grade. I went into the accounting prof and he said, well, I can't afford to drop you off the roster because I need to keep my count up. But he said, if you promise never to take accounting again, yeah. I'll pass you. Well, and so with that, I did get like a C- in
right.
accounting. I was able to get through, and I went home and I started doing some reflecting. And I said, what do I like? Right. And I said, I like people, I like the outdoors. I like all of the things that, and I like government service. If there's a couple of things that he taught me, it was, public service, the importance of public service and integrity and a love of what you do.
Right.
And I thought about that and I said, that's where I need to be. So I started looking at majors that did those sorts of things. And one of our local universities had a Parks and Recreation major with a strength in park management. And so I started in that, and he sat down with me one day and he said, are you interested in continuing this? Is this what you want to do for your life's work? And I said, yeah. And he says, well, let me tell you something. He says, the resource takes care of itself. That's not a problem. It's all the people that I have to deal with that give me my problems. He said, go to school and learn how to deal with people, and then take that back to the resource. And so I did get a degree from Cal Poly Pomona, a Bachelor of Science in Park Management, but it was very technically related. I didn't follow his advice right away. And at that point I thought, gee, I know why I manage, but I know how to manage, but I don't know why I manage. I wanted some more background. Spent a stint in the military and in Air Police and
right.
the Air Force, and came back out on the GI Bill and went to UC Davis in a planning degree, and it was a self-styled planning degree. My prof actually let me take what I wanted to take.
That's great.
And it was I told him I didn't want to specialize. I wanted to get a degree that had a combination of ecology, planning, and political science. I wanted to put those three together because it seemed like that would give me what I needed to move ahead. And it was a 2-year major professional degree, and I graduated from school, and my prof said, finally you've learned how to ask the question why. Well, I'd gone to school to answer the question why, and he just told me that's what I'd learned. I thought, okay, I don't know whether this was worth it or not, but went ahead to LA County. I had a choice at that point of going into being a superintendent of parks in a small district, or going into a management trainee position in LA County. And I saw the management trainee position as a way of just learning everything about parks, and I went through, I was involved in golf courses and parkway maintenance and planning, and I went through the wide spectrum of what the county had to offer, and realized that planning was really something that I migrated to. I loved it. It was really important for me to see how things worked and why they related to one another. And spent 10 years in LA County as a planner, and ended up being head park planner over all advanced planning design. And then realized that I had gotten as far as I could without any line experience, and I needed line experience. At that point, the city of Anaheim had a position, and it was under somebody that I really admired and had worked with before. But as I thought about it, I looked back and I said, I'm still not in the natural resources, which is where I wanted to be in the first place. My human skills were working, but they weren't working where I wanted them to work. And I went down to Anaheim. I had told Syl that I was my wife.
And Syl's your wife.
Yeah,
yes.
That I was going to just be in Southern California a couple of years and then go back to Northern California. And we just kept going on. I was 24 years in Anaheim.
And you did a great job there.
And they made the job interesting. They kept adding things to the job. I was originally park superintendent, then I became a director, and went on to, I ran the libraries, I ran neighborhood services, I ran human services.
Very broad.
A lot of, all the soft services in Anaheim. But I also learned that if we were going to get anything done, we had to partner. And the skills, the human skills of collaboration and working with folks were the way to leverage what resources I had into a whole lot more. And that what Parks and Recreation was about was not Parks and Recreation per se, but community building. Building that sense of community with everyone. At that point, 24 years later, there was a tragedy in the family and my son died. And at that point, it made me re-examine myself and say, you know, there are things that you need to do in your life, and if there's that challenge out there that you've always wanted to do, you should go for it. Not too long after that, the National Park Service job came up, and it contained all of the things that I'd done and prepared for my entire life. And I could just see in my dad's statement, learn how to deal with people and then go back and use it, that this was almost a calling. It was almost ordained. And I thought if I didn't try for this, I was going to be extremely sorry in the long run, and I tried it, and fortunately.
And we're very pleased you're with us, and you've been doing such a great job, but it is major challenging because there's so many changes that are involved in National Park Service to look beyond our boundaries, but you've been doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
One of the things, though, you might want to share, in addition on in your background, you know that you've been your past NRPA president. You've been a past president of the California Society. Could you share some of those experiences, and how did that help you maybe focus on what you wanted to do? You know, now taking the move from Anaheim to Washington, D.C. How did that help your life?
Well, I started in the first 10 years in LA County, I wasn't involved professionally at all. And when I got down to Orange County and Anaheim, I ran into so many quality people that were involved in professional organizations. And I thought, I want to be around those people. I want to be part of them. I want to be accepted by them. And so I started out in park maintenance in the local district and became the representative there. I became the president for the district, and then started up through the state on the board, and eventually became president of the California Parks and Recreation Society. It was a chance to meet with folks. It was a chance to mix, hear common problems, common concerns. It was a way to give back to the profession. And the other thing it did is it gave you a chance to look at a lot of good people.
Yes.
It became a recruitment technique for me. You know, you looked at the good people out there, and if you didn't get them, you could refer them over, because you wanted those good people to succeed. Those are the ones that you want around you. My involvement at the national level was because I was frankly very critical of NRPA and what they were doing. It was a membership organization, and yet they weren't doing anything in terms of trying to find out what the membership was all about. My entire career was, as a planner, was to do an assessment, a needs assessment, try to find out what people wanted, and then work a plan around that. So I became a strategic planner, both by practice and by training, and by education. And I had done a strategic plan for my own agency. In fact, I did 4 of them before I was out of there. I did a strategic plan for the state, CPRS, the first one that they had done. And I was asked to be involved in a needs assessment for NRPA and was on a committee. We were able to take that and turn it into a strategic plan for the organization that helped direct where the organization was going. And because it is such a diverse organization, they really needed to focus on where they were going. So it was a chance to be involved there, and the presidency of the national professional organization just kind of came out of that. It was, I would say that by far the most satisfying work that I did within RPA was committee work. Working on the assessments, the environmental committee that I worked on with you on. It was trying to again get focus and give back to that fantastic organization. It's got, and of course the Ahrens Institute, working on that, and finding that I had skills that I didn't even know I had in fundraising. You know,
you've raised a lot of money. You were one of the key leaders for the Ahrens Institute in bringing on Musco Lighting to help fund part of the Ahrens Institute and others. And so that's a skill that wasn't as familiar to you until
and it's come in very handy. You know, that you take the skills from the professional organization, take it back to the work, and vice versa. And one other experience I had is I went through the League of California Cities chairs, and they're structured like a city would be. They have departments for the police and the fire and parks and recreation. And I went up through those chairs and then got on the board with the League of Cities. And while that organization is primarily political, what it did for me was actually point out how important we are in other people's eyes. When you're in an organization of parks and recreation professionals, they all commiserate with one another. Oh, isn't it awful? You know, that's going on. And you'd say the same thing to a councilman or to a fire chief, and they would question you and say, "What are you talking about?" And it really put me on my toes. But at the same time, I learned how important what we did was in their eyes, and it gave me it made me much more resolute about the importance of what we do as a profession in communities by being able to see, you know, our profession through others' eyes.
Right. Well, you've done so well in the strategic planning with the National Recreation Park Association, but also you've been a distinguished professional, recognized through NRPA, and you've received many awards through your career. Is there any key award that meant the most to you?
Oh.
I know that wasn't in our book, but anyway, I
don't, you know, rewards and awards are fine. I think they're great that you get them, you feel good about them, but you know, I never concentrated too much on them or thought too much about them. Certainly the Pugsley Award was very special to me, but
and that's given by the Academy. So.
Given by the Academy, and to receive it at the same time as Bruce Babbitt received a Pugsley was very special.
Exactly.
Kind of points out the importance of it.
Now, one of the areas that you've also been working on that I think is a great part of your legacy is something you've just done for the Academy, and that is the Gold Medal Awards. And having been a Gold Medal Award winner, you know, for Florida State Parks, it means so much. And that program had lost its funding source, and you were chairman of the Gold Medal, and you've taken it and moved it forward. Could you share? Because I'm very proud of that, and I hope you are.
Well, it even goes back further than that, Fran. When I was president of NRPA, there was a lot of criticism about the Gold Medal program and the fact that maybe it wasn't as fair as it ought to be. By using the bully pulpit, by using the presidency, I put together a blue ribbon committee.
Right.
Past recipients, past presidents. You were on that committee.
I was on that committee. Yes.
And it was very important that we come up with a set of recommendations that started to create credibility with the program again. And the recommendations came out of that. We instituted those recommendations. One of the recommendations were that we put the gold medal on at the opening general session. So that was the start of it, and More recently, just a year ago, we were told by the National Sporting Goods Association, who had sponsored this since its beginning in 1965, that they were no longer going to sponsor it. And that was almost the death knell for the program, because that was maybe $40,000 that we weren't going to get to help in that program. At the same time, NRPA, who had been involved in the program, was going through economic pains, and they didn't know that they could support it even with the staff that they had supported it with before. So we sat down and as a judging committee and talked about where it should go, how it should be continued, and went to the Academy for Park and Recreation Administration, whose main purpose is to promote excellence in the profession, and said, this is important, you need to be involved in this. And they said, well, we agree with you, but we're not going to do it without money, because it costs money. We don't have any way of bringing in
$40,000 a year, or approximately.
So Steve Meserly and I sat down and put together an RFP to go out to corporations to see if we could get sponsors. We didn't know whether we'd have to get 10 or 5 or 2 or 1. And in sharing that RFP with some friends of ours, both Porter Athletic Equipment and Musco Lighting, we thought we'd ask people who were involved whether or not this looked okay. And we didn't have to go much further than that. They both, Greg Heggie and Joe Crookham, agreed to be sponsors. They have agreed for 10 years at an amount of $20,000 per year each to support this. So for this foreseeable, and they want first right of refusal if we up it again. So I think we have some very solid sponsors. They seem to be very happy, and I'm very proud that we're able to keep that program going. And
I'll tell you, all of us are.
Fear is a wonderful motivator. And when you think you're going to lose a program that important, it really made us all work and make that happen.
Well, we congratulate you for doing that, because it really has meant so much to the profession to have the Gold Medal Awards, and now to have it linked to the Academy, and to also have a permanent funding source, or at least for the near future, for sure. We really commend you for that. As you've gone through your career, again, you made changes as you started out in college, and made decision changes, and then you've spoken about your father. But is there any mentors that you look to, or might have helped you through life?
Absolutely. I can't say that there were any in undergraduate school, but graduate school was the first time where I actually felt that I got an education. I mean, and it was all self-motivated. It was, and I had a prof there. His name was Seymour Gold, Dr. Seymour Gold. Came out of University of Michigan, and he had a planning degree, urban and regional planning degree. He had done outdoor recreation planning, and he was in the Parks and Recreation Department at Davis, Environmental Planning Department at Davis. And he gave me a whole new perspective in life in terms of how to view things from a planning perspective, how to view it from the user's viewpoint, not from the others, how to collaborate, all of the things that we talk about today. And he was the first one that really got me going and was important to me. I went to LA County after that. There wasn't anybody right away, but the director I broke in under, Norm Johnson, retired, and a fellow named Seymour Grieben came in, and Cy Grieben had been the head of a Peace Corps mission in Africa, but he was also in Parks and Recreation, and he had come back, and what he gave me more than anything else was a focus on vision. And a focus on doing things. I'll never forget, I was in a meeting with him one day, and he said, well, we've got to do this. And I looked at him and I said, but Cy, that's against the law.
No,
you can't do that.
You
know? And he says, well, it's a bad law. Let's change the law. And I had never thought of that, you know?
Wow.
And he had no problem. He'd go to the state legislature and he changed the law. And,
oh my gosh.
By building constituencies, because he never lost focus of the mission. And that's what Peace Corps is so well known for, is their ability to focus on mission. Right. And so working with Cy had some other shortcomings, and one of them was dealing with people, but he was great at focusing on mission. So I learned that from him, and I would kind of provide him the ammunition and he'd shoot the gun. You know, that's kind of how it worked, and I really enjoyed that, being a staffer for him. I went from there to Anaheim, where Jim Ruth was there, and Jim is a former president of the
Yes,
National
I know
Recreation
Jim.
and Park Association. Jim had a whole nother way of approaching things. He was a very authoritarian, strong manager, but had the softest touch in terms of dealing with people I've ever seen. And he just would, he was very warm, and he always remembered people, but that didn't mean he was soft in his approach,
Right.
and he got things done. And so I consider him one of my mentors. He's now the chief administrative officer for Orange County, and just a great guy. And so you know, as you go through, you pick these people. And I to young professionals, I would say, you know, forget the job, is, you know, look more for the person that you're working for. You have to respect that person that you're working for and be able to learn from them, or you're not going to grow.
Right.
And I can say the same thing about you. I'm learning and growing, and having this opportunity has just been one of the best things for reinvigorating me that there could be.
Well, it's certainly been great for having, for me and for the National Park Service, having you come on board, and you've made such a difference, and I really appreciate it. I think, as you just mentioned about young people, what would you, I just spoke to a student group here at the here at NRPA. What guidance would you give to young people today, plus any trends that you see that they should be aware of?
Well, guidance in general is for starters, and I say this to a lot of folks: do what you love.
Do what you love.
Do what you love, because the rest will come easy. You know,
Yes.
sit down and look at the skills you have, the skill set that you have that makes you unique as a human being. And it may be that you'd be better off as a minister than you would
Right.
a Parks and Recreation person, or as a planner, or whatever. So start with what you are, and live, you know, be true to yourself to start with. If you're interested in Parks and Recreation, if you like people, if you like collaboration,
Right.
if you like innovation, you know, get into Parks and Rec, because this is a great place. Serving and helping people, having a public ethic that, you know, in service is one of the finest callings that you can possibly have. And then work on your collaboration skills. Because no matter what you do or where you go, those will be useful. I don't care whether you are a
Exactly.
minister or you're a civil
You need
engineer or
those.
whatever. You know, work on those, and then pick up a technical area that again you love. In my case, I didn't come through the typical Parks and Recreation program. I came through
The
the planning and the maintenance side. But so it gave me a different perspective, and I believe in our profession that we need those different perspectives. I've always hired people, geographers and social scientists, and because it's the team. You don't want a group think. You don't want all the people out of the same
mill.
school. You want to have a number of people that come in and work together and bring different aspects to the problem solving.
Do you see any particular trends other than collaboration and partnership that are standing out for you in the future, as far as with young people, or any advice that you would give?
Well, trends in general in the profession, absolutely. I'll never forget when I first got in and I looked around at the directors that existed. When I first started, they were all very authoritarian. They were all kings of their communities, particularly in California. They had more money and could hand out more favors, you know, to the locals than anybody. And I looked around and I said, I'm not cut out to be that, and I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to be a Parks and Recreation director, because I don't have the skill set that these people have. But what happened is the requirements changed for directors. It soon became apparent that the authoritarian manager was out, and that you had to collaborate, you had to work with people to succeed, and all of a sudden my skill set fit instead of me having to change my
Exactly.
method of doing things. The other thing that happened, and it happened in California in the late 70s, it's happening all over the nation right now, is we don't have enough money to do everything that we need to do. And so the way that you deal with that is that you do collaborate, you do work with people. And I read a very important book, it was called Entrepreneurship by Gifford Pinchot III. And what he said in that book is that, you know, entrepreneurship is working out of your garage and doing something and inventing something. He said entrepreneurship is working within the organization and using the resources. He was talking private sector when he wrote this book, But I read it and I said, this is perfect for government. I mean, we're in a position as Parks and Recreation people where people respect you. You're not carrying any particular agenda. You're out there to try to improve the community. And by being an entrepreneur within the city, you can do magical things just by pulling people together. I pulled church groups together. I pulled all the ministers in town together and said, how can we work together to improve this community? I pulled the service clubs together. Said, how can we work together? You all come to me individually and want a project. Why don't we work together on projects? And we can do so much more. So it was using, whether it's a police department, I counted once the number of collaborative relationships I had with all of the departments in the community, and it was phenomenal, the things that we were doing together. And pretty soon you become integral to the fabric of the community. Not me personally, right. The department and all the things that we did. So that people, really do realize, I believe that what we were about, and you talk about change, the Parks and Recreation departments have always thought themselves as a service. We're not a service. What we are is building the social fabric of community. And community is not about physical infrastructure. It's about social infrastructure. It's about the degree to which people work together for the common good. And we've seen less and less of that in the last 3 decades. In the 50s and 60s, it started to decline, and there are fewer people in service clubs, there are fewer people working on behalf of the community. And in our profession, we have the ability to pull people together and get them to work. Not provide the program for them, to say, hey, we'll help you collaborate to do it yourself. And it's empowering people to be involved in their own self-governance once again, and that's the magic to me. That's why I stay in what I do. And people that recognize that, people that do that well, are going to succeed in our profession no matter where it goes or what it's called.
So that's good guidance for young people. It's good guidance for everyone that's even in the field or in any business. I think that collaboration and the reaching out. I think one of the areas, though, that you've had the courage to make changes. I mean, you've been in Anaheim for many years in California, and you had the courage, even though you knew you were the selectee, you had a job, we offered you an opportunity in national parks, but you found inside of you, with Syl, your wife, the courage to make the move all the way from West Coast to East Coast. And one of the points I made with students is that you have to have that courage. Can you make any comments about that, and how, maybe even the feelings you had in making that decision, and any advice that you might give to others as far as having the courage to make those kind of changes?
Well, I can't speak for anybody else,
right.
But I can tell you that learning has been integral to my entire career and my entire life. That it's not about courage, it's about learning. It's about constantly looking for opportunities to grow. And when I was in Anaheim, one of the reasons I was there for 24 years is they kept adding things to my portfolio.
Your agenda.
Yeah. I mean, I ran the libraries. My sister has a library science degree, and I'm running the libraries in Anaheim. And it wasn't just being there and not doing anything. Right. It was really, I mean, I had more people when I left Anaheim from the library system say, we're going to miss you than probably anybody else. Right. And it wasn't just a matter of winning them over. It was a matter of taking those skills, and by the way, the delivery of service of libraries and Parks and Recreation is in many ways the same. They market, they provide free services, they provide fee services, they program, they do all the things that, so I could take many of the skills and just go directly across. But I got the community involved with them, and once they got involved with their community, they started connecting better, and it got better. So that's the challenge and the fun of government, in my estimation.
Now, also, you've been active in Rotary and a number of other civic organizations as well. How has that helped you, and is that something you encourage others? You've talked about being linked to the community, and I think being involved in things like Rotary is a good thing. Has that been beneficial for you?
Well, first of all, you can't go around and say that, gee, you ought to volunteer, but I don't. You know?
Exactly.
I mean, you have to live, you have to walk the talk. You have to get out in the community and show them that you care. You have to show up and be at the events and enjoy it with them and suffer with them and go to the funerals and go to the, just be part of that. And being part of Rotary was just as natural as getting up and combing my hair in the morning. I mean, it was something that I had to do. But I also was involved in my own. I lived in Fullerton. I worked in Anaheim, so I was involved as in tree plantings, and I mean, I got out and enjoyed it. And it was another method of really spending time with my wife too, who was involved locally in many of those things. So it's sort of you can't live one life and work in another. I mean, to me, it's all one and the same. And so doing that is absolutely essential to, I just think, a healthy spirit and mind.
Well, also, you mentioned Sil again. She is a volunteer right now in national parks and helping out at the Ford Theater and other things of that nature. Can you speak any to how her support of you and others has helped through your career?
Oh man, I don't even know where to start on that. I got to tell you a kind of a joke. Bill Mott, who is former National Park Service Director, former State of California Parks Director, our first date was a Bill Mott lecture.
Oh, is that right?
And I said, you want to see what our profession...
National Park Service Director?
Yep. I said, you want to see what our profession is about. You want to see one of the best in the business. And I took her to that. And I figured if she passed that, it was okay. Exactly. But she loved, she's, like I came out of the Forest Service, her dad was very actively involved in the community, or mom was, and so she had that natural predisposition to do that, and has been tremendously supportive of me in my career. She's worked on her own, but she's also volunteered, and she's always been there. She loves going to events with me.
Right.
That was part of the pact that we had when we moved back east. Is number one, we would spend weekends out looking at all the park facilities,
right,
and the cultural events, which there are many that we'd never gotten to see before. But she would also be able to pick up and travel with me when we went to different places. And Sil is on the quiet side. I'm on the noisy side. So it's really important that she'll sit and watch and observe, and I will. I'll walk away from something and then I'll ask her, well, what really happened there?
I can see that.
She would, and she'll just say, very objectively, this was good, this was not so good. You need to shut up more and listen to others. And I'll tell you, that's been invaluable to my career. We've been married 37 years, and it seems like 5, if that much. I mean, it's just to have her there and have her always supportive of what I've done. I don't know how I could have done it any other way. Right. I'd be a lonely guy, I'll tell you.
Well, she's great, and you both are, been so supportive of each other from what I've been able to see. What do you think have been the changes that have taken place? We've talked collaboration and things of that nature, but do you think it's always been there in parks as a whole, park and recreation throughout this nation? What have you observed as changes in your years as far as park and recreation are concerned? And again, is there any other future trends that you're seeing coming forth?
Well, I talked about it a little bit. The Parks and Recreation is started from a citizen movement. It didn't start from professionals.
That's right.
It started from a citizen movement, and it was people. There were people that got together and said, this is what we need to do. And ironically, it started after the Industrial Revolution, and it was a time. Peter Witt last night gave us. He was standing on the curb, and he gave a quote from a police chief that said, you can either pay for more police or you can pay for parks and recreation. The quote was 1890.
Is that right?
Yeah. and it's pretty ironic, that we go in cycles in many of the things we've done. But what happened is it started as a citizen movement. We then professionalized it, and probably in the 50s and 60s it reached its epitome of professionalization. That what we forgot, though, is the citizen that we were really trying to serve. And if you remember the movie when the guy yelled out the window, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore."
Yeah, exactly.
That was a general feeling that citizens had about government, that government was doing too much for them. They were doing it to them as opposed to working with them. And so what I've seen, and when I came on then as a planner, my prof, Cy Gold, had said we need to work through the citizens, find out what they want. So I instituted in LA County for the first time surveys to determine what we should put in parks. We had meetings, we had civic meetings, we did a whole lot of different types of surveys to find out what the public wanted. And so the trend then has been going back the other way, where And frankly, I think the lack of money in our profession has caused us to have to lean more on the citizens and increase volunteerism. And I don't think it should ever go back the other way.
Right.
We should never get to the
Right.
point where we think we know what's best for the citizens. They should be telling us it was a citizen-based movement. We need to be sensitive to that and always be aware of what their needs are, seeking those needs out and collaborating with them. One of the things I'm proudest of in the city of Anaheim was I had built a base, very strong base in terms of working with all the other departments. We started something called neighborhood services within our operation, and we did it because we were the best people at talking to people within the city. The engineers weren't very good, the police didn't do a good job, planning didn't do a good job, but we did. And what we would do is go out to a neighborhood. If you were to call in and say, I've got a problem in my neighborhood, and I've seen graffiti and I've seen potholes, and we want to talk to somebody about it, we would pull the departments together that were involved in that. And literally do a triage and an RX, a prescription for solving that. And they got to meet all the key people that they needed to work with to solve that problem. And so from there on out, they could call that person. They knew who that person was. We brought, an effectiveness back to the citizen in terms of being able to work for the government. We even put on a citizens academy, and we taught them. We taught them how to set up an agenda, how to deal with conflict in a meeting. The mayor would come out and talk to them. The city engineer would come out and talk to them, and so they learned how to work with government again. We have to re-educate them to do that, and then they start solving their own problems. And we would have people come to the council meeting and just say, "We just think this is the greatest thing going." I didn't have to say a thing. We just did it, that's what I think the difference is the empowerment of our citizens to help in the governance of their own lives to the extent that they want to.
That is
It's
great.
very, very important.
One of the things that I know when we brought, that I've worked with you for so many years, and through NRPA and in other roles, but technology has been something you've always seemed to be ahead on. You were always one of the first people doing a lot of computer work, and remember you used to tease me about I wasn't responding as well to my emails. I'm doing better.
I love your BlackBerry.
I'm going well. How do you feel technology, what role will it play for us in the future for Parks and Recreation?
Oh, it's absolutely essential to our operation. I was involved through NRPA in the starting of the NRPA Net, which was it was a listserv where people could talk to one another and solve their own problems. They didn't need to call NRPA. Somebody would come on and say, "I've got algae in my pond. How do I get rid of it?" And I'll never forget. I had heard someplace that all you needed to do was throw a bale of hay in the lake, and the algae would go away. And it's true. That
did?
Yeah, that will solve it.
Okay.
And so you never know where the answer is going to come from, but the ability to connect with one another, to the citizens. Citizens ought to be able to call in or email in. We need to have that connectivity if we're so big, even within the Park Service, finding ways, the web page and
the Inside NPS that we created, yes.
And the NPS Digest with our partners, which is not, the Inside NPS is the internal document, but now we have one for our partners that we work with. And getting the word out, the responsibility becomes using it,
Exactly.
And so we have to do that, but it just opens up so many possibilities. We're only limited by our imaginations and what we can do in communicating with people. So even the basic computer, I never dictated. I hand drafted everything, and I found that the Word program was just absolutely designed for me. And started using it right away. It just works.
Well, I know I used to always hear you say, "No, I got to email you, and you're not looking at them." I've been trying to do better.
You do very well.
I'm moving along in that.
Yep.
What would you say is the thing that you're probably most proud of that you've accomplished or have done in your career? I just didn't want you
had two great kids.
That is important, and a great family.
That wasn't in my career, but
no?
Great family. I think this neighborhood services thing that I just told you about was one that I'm very proud of. The work with the libraries and moving into an area that I was totally unfamiliar with gave me confidence as a manager that if you apply the basic management principles and some real humanistic approach to dealing with people, we turned that whole library system around. We totally automated it. We did a number of things to make it relevant. And I was very proud of that. I was very proud of Vision 2000 and taking, for the first time doing a survey to find out what the membership of the association wanted in NRPA, and then turning that into a plan, working with 8 regions and 8 branches and all of these people that all had a different view, but all were willing to pull together toward a common goal. Very satisfying. And then I think just in general, in Anaheim, I moved about every 3 to 5 years as a kid. I never had a community, never lived anywhere that I could point to. And for once in Anaheim, in 24 years, building the connections and doing the thing, building that fabric that I was talking about, I really felt that I belonged. I felt that I had really improved that community, and I made a lasting mark. And it doesn't mean that I didn't want to move on, but it was. I think I had to prove to myself that I could do it, and that's why I stayed as long as I did. So that was very important to me.
I know for us in the National Park Service, you've already, working along with one of the other associates, come up with a partnership process that will probably be part of your legacy at the National Park Service. And even though it may be tweaked as it goes along, you have given guidance to the Park Service and our citizen partners on how do we go forth with major projects, those that are $5 million or more, and actually down to $1 million or more projects. I know from my perspective that is going to be part of your legacy as well, and getting that in place, because our people needed guidance, and you helped put that together in the past that hasn't really been there. So.
That's been very satisfying, and time will tell whether it works. I mean, obviously people want to see the results, not just the process, and we're up to that challenge because we think we have the right thing. The other is the partnership with the TIA, Tourism Industry of America, and Travel Industry of America, and the National Park Foundation, and what that shows to me is we put together an effort where the national parks were highlighted as a place to be visited and
see America's national parks.
See America's national parks, and all of the resources of TIA was used to promote the national parks at literally no cost to us at all. And to me, it just demonstrated the low-hanging fruit that exists in the Park Service for doing wonderfully creative things. I mean, we've only started to touch the types of things that we can do in volunteerism, in interpretation, in education, in partnerships. There's so much to do, and that's why I'm re-energized as a human being, to be able to work on those things.
Well, Chris, you are a great legend for all of us in Academy, but for the entire park and recreation field in this nation. And you have made so many contributions, and you're continuing to do so. And I know the sky's the limit for what you'll be able to accomplish in the future. And we're just so proud to have you as part of the Academy and part of our Legends series. There's about probably a minute left. If there's any comments you would like to make that maybe I haven't covered, or last comments to make to anyone who would be looking at this tape.
Well, when you go through a career, you do what you think's right, and you don't try to have an effect. I can't say that I really sat down and organized exactly where I was going to go in my life and exactly what I was going to do. But it is, I've told my son, both sons, that what you are is a sum total of all the experiences that you have, and as long as you're doing what you want, you will find ways to advance, and you'll never know. It's the old adage of opportunity and preparation equals luck. You never know where the doors are going to open next, and like this National Park Service job was just almost a fluke that it happened, but it fulfilled a lifelong dream of mine, and that's I think we all need to be prepared. We need to be open, and we need to take advantage of those things that are there. And I want to thank you for everything you've done to make my life a whole lot more exciting.
And thank you, Chris. You're great. But one of the things you left out of this interview is one of the important parts of my life is you had to review and sign off on my current husband. As you remember, my first
That's
husband
true.
passed away about
That's
6 years
true.
ago, and you had to do a review process, and I did rely heavily on your concurrence that I was making a right decision. We've been friends a long time, and I know we'll continue to be good friends as well as professionals, and I look forward to working with you in the future in national parks or whatever we do together.
Thank
you
you
so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.